Hello, I'm the Red Man, and I watched High Guardian Spice.
Well, that was dumb.
I have a cringe problem, clearly, in the same way a basehead has a smack problem. So when I realized this obvious disaster had finally released, I just had to take a look. And sad to say, High Guardian Spice isn't even that cringe. It's just excruciatingly boring. Nothing happens in this show, at least for the first 3 bloody episodes, which is where I gave up. I have played whole-ass 80-minute rugby matches at hooker, and afterwards was like, get me a beer, let's do it again next week. But 70 minutes of High Guardian Spice and my will to live was at exactly 0. Don't get me wrong, there is some cringe in this show, mostly in the absolutely abortional dialogue.
We'll scale mountains, and fight mermaids, and explore precipices, and crevices, and we'll be totally fearsome dudes.
Totally fearsome dudes.
For fuck's sake, so much of this dialogue sounds like a reply chain on Twitter instead of actual human speech, especially out of Rosemary, the apparent protagonist. Let's quickly sum up some more pedestrian problems before I get to the crown jewel of failure that had me tap out. To repeat myself, the dialogue is often fucking terrible.
Look who I found hanging out in the guest room. A couple of dang teens.
I guess it's because there's nothing actually happening in the show, so they felt the need to fill the time with babbling, but they had nothing of any relevance for the character to say, because not a goddamn thing is happening, so they wrote inane Tumblr banter. That any human being could write human interaction so fucking poorly weighs heavy upon the soul. Then there's the awful animation. While the backgrounds and environments are actually pretty slick for the most part, the character's animation is so bad in a lot of places that they look like they're on a slightly different plane of existence at times, as if they're standing in front of a low-budget green screen. How did this show take fucking years to make and they couldn't even animate it as well as Ed, and Eddie? Still on production issues, the voice acting is bad. 1 or 2 characters sound okay, but elsewise the whole thing has that Steven Universe quality to it where it's very clear they couldn't even spring for amateur voice actors from YouTube gag dubs or video game mods, and instead just use people around the office or that they followed on Tumblr. Not only that, but it sounds like they couldn't even be asked to balance the audio of different voice actors worth a shit. So the result is best described as rectal cancer, but for your ears. Paisley in particular has awful voice acting.
What was what?
Wah! Quite the pipes you've got there. How can I help?
You wore this out in the market first thing in the morning? Welcome! You two must be Noodle and Garth. Have you finished sweeping the stables?
No.
Then get back to it! And tell Dad I'll be done when I'm done.
What the actual fuck even is that? It sounds like a girl trying to sound like a boy and doing a subpar job of it. Which is a shame because Paisley is about the only character so far that isn't some form of insufferable. And for the record, I don't know for sure if Paisley is supposed to be a male or female. That's gender-binary fascism, agender-phobic microaggression, queer bigotry, white supremacy.
Shut the fuck up!
And I guess that's as good a segue as any into the, let's call it Tumblr leftism that's broadly sprinkled all over this turd. Specifically, the boys are girls and girls are boys delusion that SJW Danger Hairs all seem to have. This obvious guy is a woman, apparently. This bald lesbian is a man, allegedly. This 80s hair metal vocalist is a girl, I think. This punk dude is a lesbian, I guess. I still don't even know what the fuck Paisley is supposed to be, though really, I'm assuming Paisley is a girl because this is an SJW story, so men can only be bit players or villains. There's more stuff like a weird focus on superfluous hand-holding, friends sleeping in the same bed because one of them had a bad dream, and a transsexual teacher we'll get to in a minute, but I don't want to get too bogged down into the Tumblr bullshit. So let's loosely address the characters. As I mentioned, Paisley is alright, at least for the first 3 episodes. The others are either too thin to even bother remarking on, or irritating twats. Special mention should go to the apparent protagonist, Rosemary, who is a dangerously moronic airhead on the level of Steven Universe fame. There's something about Tumblrina types that seem to think a malignant, facile imbecile with no concern for the safety of themselves or anyone near them is just delightful. It's actually quite irritating. A character can be flippant or irreverent or rambunctious or a smart aleck and still be likable, but if they are whole-ass retarded, like Steven and Rosemary, any sympathy or affinity for them is going to dry up immediately. Now, most of that crap could have been tolerated if the show wasn't, as I've already said, so goddamn boring. Let me show you the scene that caused me to quit.
Like a bitch!
Because it perfectly encapsulates everything fundamentally wrong with this show, and why there is no possible way it could ever turn the corner, and why it could never have been any good in the first place. This is clearly for review and educational purposes, by the way. So here it is.
Is that your sister?
It's me, actually.
You are a girl?
I'm transgender.
I don't know that word.
I was born into a female body, but it wasn't the right body for me. So I used new magic to change it.
Cool. You can do that? Is that kind of transformation magic permanent?
I take a potion once a month to keep the spell active, which lets me be the real me.
Actually, just kill me.
So, let's set aside the fact that this is just low-effort neo-gender propaganda for a second. Let's instead address the fact that the Nimrodical pisswhistles who wrote this garbage made a setting with wild-ass magic that apparently includes transmorgification or whatever, and this is what they did with it. Just, oh, I used magic to be transginger, but didn't even bother to do anything about my fairy girl cock-gargling voice. Unbelievable. It's actually very believable. I don't even know why I said that. These Tumblr goblins only know one trick, and that is to leak their LBGTQIALMAOWTF solve for X degeneracy all over everything. But they can't even do that right. If they wanted to go degen, then by all means, go degen. Commit to the damn bit. Have a character that identifies as two separate creatures, one a Minotaur and the other Tinkerbell, and they like to have raucous sex with each other. That was off the top of my head, yet a room full of writers paid to make stuff up couldn't make up anything better than the literal most boring, unimaginative, and simplistic thing they could have done. They couldn't even be asked to come up with a thinly veiled metaphor for transgenderism. They just deadass have this character explain he's transgender, despite it not having any relevance to anything, and I can't imagine it'll ever lead to anything either. Though there could have been an actual angle out of this premise, like, just don't have the scene where the characters blurt this shit out for no earthly reason, and instead build to a situation where this character is deprived of their potion long enough that they revert back to their female body. Then, in addition to whatever situation caused this problem in the first place, the characters would also have that to deal with, heightening the drama. But the writers would never actually do anything like that, because the danger-haired Tumblr weirdos who made this show know if they ever did something like that, their alleged allies would try to cancel them. Other danger-haired Tumblr weirdos would immediately turn on them, like the slaughterhouse curs they are, and accuse them of something bloody asinine like fetishizing the suffering of trans folk. And while High Guardian Spice is boring because their creative team is wholly devoid of creativity, ultimately, all Tumblr left SJW diversity bullshit media is doomed for this reason. These people are deathly allergic to writing any actual conflict. Meaningful conflict is the soul of drama, but these failures will never present any meaningful conflict. Because they absolutely know that if they do, some unemployed fat ass with bipolar disorder on Twitter will seize on it to call them a trans phone, or racist, or white supremacist, or whatever, in order to destroy their careers and drive them to suicide. Though that's exactly what they deserve. You live by the psychotic Tumblrina diversity politics, you die by the psychotic Tumblrina diversity politics, while I laugh at you. Anyway, I've completely lost the initial plot of this video, so I'm going to wrap it up. Just don't watch High Guardian Spice, not even to laugh at it, because it's not even good enough for that. Though I guess if you have insomnia or just want to rid yourself of that last stubborn shred of a will to live, this show is exactly the show for you. I'm the Red Man. Thank you for watching. I'm going back to playing Japanese role-playing games, even though I hate them. I'll see you next time. Take care until then. So it turns out Paisley is actually named Parsley. I think my brain just rejected the premise of 4 protagonists named Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme. And no, the song Scarborough Fair doesn't seem to have anything to do with the show in any way, shape, or form. I don't know why they went with this stupid gimmick. I just wish we were in a timeline where we got the version of the show called Low Defender Herb, with protagonists Paisley, Sasha, Rhonda, and Tammy, and it was actually good. I just realized that halfway through editing and wanted to correct it at the end without having to actually go back and redo all the audio because I'm not putting more effort into this dinky YouTube video than 2/3 of these paid professionals put into their entire cartoon.